One of the most dangerous and heinous misconceptions describing the Arab-Israel conflict is the suggestion that Israel is a colonial entity, created by European powers to atone for the crimes of the Holocaust. The busting of this myth needs to address the following three aspects. 1. The Jews have no historical claim to the land of Israel, their ancestral home. 2. The Jews have no legal rights to the territory called Palestine. 3. There is no moral justification to provide a safe and secure Jewish state following the murder of 6 million Jews in Hitler's death camps. The first is the historical myth, that there is no historical justification for the rights of the Jewish people to return to their historical homeland, Eretz Israel. This myth does not take into account the rise of Zionism in the 20th century. Zionism developed in Eastern and Central Europe as a national liberation movement of the Jewish people to return to their land. There were extraordinarily strong economic, social and cultural factors, including ever-increasing anti-Semitism and pogroms, which encouraged the Jews of Eastern Europe to emigrate to Palestine. Zionism is the return of an indigenous people rightfully to its ancestral homeland. To suggest that Zionism should be compared to the colonial activities of the European powers of the 19th century is a gross injustice. For example, there are no cities in Israel called New England or New York, New Vilna or New Bialystok. Historian Ran Akassi maintains that the claims of both the Jewish and Palestinian Arab communities can rightfully claim degrees of indigenous connection to the territory, but that Palestinian Arab claims of being the sole indigenous inheritors of the land are dubious. In addition, Atone Golan states that Zionism was not imperialist nor colonialist in nature, but a national liberation movement that developed in Eastern and Central Europe in conjunction with other liberation movements in these regions. There are numerous books, articles, and essays attempting to delegitimize Israel's right to exist. It should never be forgotten that the only country whose legal existence is questioned daily on almost every international stage, and that is Israel's. Ever since the destruction of the Second Temple and the exile of the Jewish people from its ancestral land, Eretz Israel, there have been references made through prayer, "If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand cease its cunning," or during the Pesach, the Passover meal, the Seder, the participants have been reciting next year in Jerusalem for hundreds of years. The historical link between the Jewish people and the land has never faded. Herzl wrote Die Judenstadt, The State of the Jews, which was published in February 1896, to immediate acclaim and controversy. The book argued that the Jewish people should leave Europe for Palestine, the historic homeland. The Jews possessed a nationality. All they were missing was a nation and a state of their own. Only through a Jewish state could they avoid anti-Semitism, express their culture freely, and practice their religion without hindrance. He concludes, "The Jews who wish for a state will have it. We shall live at last as free men on our own soil and die peacefully in our own home." The second aspect which needs to be addressed is the legal claim. On the 14th of May 1948, the State of Israel was established by Israel's Declaration of Independence, in part of the former British Mandate of Palestine, and in accordance with the United Nations Partition Plan. The Arab League and Arab countries opposed any partition of Palestine and to the establishment of Israel, and took military action against the newly formed state. The United Nations General Assembly Resolution 181 recognized the legal right of the Jewish people to a safe and secure national homeland. The legal claim is founded on the Balfour Declaration of 1917, whereby the British government, who had inherited the territory of Palestine after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire following World War I, viewed with favor the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people. The British mandate over Palestine was part of a wider carving up of the area between the British and the French. The Balfour Declaration states the following: His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object. It being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by the Jews in any other country. The idea of colonial expansion was used initially to describe the settlements established in the occupied territories after the Six-Day War of 1967. Maxime Rodinson, a French Marxist historian, described the occupation of the West Bank in terms of colonial expansion. However, several left-wing historians, including Ilan Pape, have used description to describe the Zionist movement preceding the 1967 war. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, and the carving up of the territory between the British and the French, the Mandate of Palestine, which included most parts of historical Eretz Israel, fell under British legal management. Neither the Jews nor the Arabs were going to be satisfied, and the outcome was civil disobedience on both sides. The civil war which broke out in Palestine forced the British to abandon their mandate to the United Nations, who set up UNSCOP, United Nations Special Committee on Palestine. The recommendations of this committee were adopted, and the State of Israel was born with the complete legal backing of the UN, although the Arabs fought the resolution and recommendation all the way through the legal process. There is, however, the issue of moral precedence over the former two claims. The moral element, opined by Professor Gideon Shimoni of the Hebrew University, is as pertinent today as it was when it was first propagated many years ago. He states, "The moral imperative was important as the historical and legal context, namely that at the time the overriding moral questions had to be, where was the greater need, where could the most good and the least harm be done?" Long before anyone could have imagined that persecution of the Jewish people would culminate in the Holocaust, the moral answer was priority for the creation of a safe and secure state for the Jewish people. How much more so in 1947, in the aftermath of the Holocaust, when it was so painfully clear that even the remnants of the European Jewish communities that had not been murdered by the Nazis could find no haven other than in a Jewish state. The unquestionable right for Israel to exist in peace and in safe and secure borders is an inalienable right, no less relevant to Israel than to those of all the other independent countries recognized by the family of nations under the banner of the United Nations Organization.